For the last 11 years, I have been working as an accountant, and in this video, I wanted to explain the harsh truth about what it's like to actually be an accountant. So let's jump into it. So what actually is an accountant? And no, you do not need to be good at math to be an accountant. I think that's like a myth that needs to be busted. But what I think of as an accountant is somebody who's really good at logically thinking through puzzles and logically solving problems. And typically you're working in public accounting, which are these public accounting firms. You're either in audit, tax, or advisory, or you're in corporate accounting in some roles like revenue accounting, you're a technical and reporting manager, you are in general ledger accounting, or some other function like accounts payable, payroll, accounts receivable. That's what I call corporate accounting. And what I do is I'm a revenue accountant. So you can imagine that every company makes money, what we call revenue, and I am in charge at the end of the day to make sure that what the company is saying that they made is the correct and accurate number. That's what the end goal for an accountant is, to make sure the financials and whatever you're booking into those financials is accurate and it's complete. So how are accounting teams structured? So when you go into corporate accounting, there is different structures that you'll see, but typically what you'll find is that you have a CFO. Under that CFO, you'll have a chief accounting officer or a corporate controller kind of owning the day-to-day and owning all the teams under the accounting function. So under the controller, you'll find the general ledger team. You'll find the technical and reporting team. You'll find the order to cash team, which includes accounts receivable, revenue accounting, commissions, and then they'll also have the accounts payable team and then payroll teams. And this is all going to roll up into the controller. And then under those teams, you're going to have staff members who ultimately report to managers of those functioning teams. When you're in public accounting, it's a little different. So when you get into public accounting, typically what you'll find are teams where you have a staff member, a second year, a senior, which is a third year, a manager, a senior manager, and then a partner that you're working with on an engagement. So an engagement is a client. So if you were going to Ernst & Young and you were auditing Google, for example, or your tax client was Google, you would have that team structure to complete that entire engagement, right? You imagine Google has a ton of things that you need to audit, a ton of tax filings. So you're going to be working with this team structure all the way through. So what does a typical day look like? So I'm going to keep talking about it in two different scenarios. So one is going to be your public accounting scenario, and then the other is going to be in corporate accounting. So in corporate accounting, if you are a staff member on the team, you're typically responsible for some day-to-day things. So you'll probably get in the morning, say it's 9 o'clock, you respond to emails for about 30 minutes. You go into a meeting at 9:30 to meet with the team, to update the team on your priorities for the week. And then at 10 o'clock, you go back to your desk and you start working on some of the day-to-day things. So when I was in revenue accounting as a staff member, I was responsible for things like checking for signature on every deal that was closed, checking to make sure that the pricing and the product were correct, that there were no non-standard terms. So something that was out of the ordinary, say we, sold something and we got free consideration from the customer. So they gave us like tickets and we gave them a subscription to our product, right? That would be something we would need to flag to my direct manager to look at and conclude on. And so that would be my day-to-day, probably from like 10 to 12 because of the volume. I'm probably doing that. And then from 12 to 1, you have your lunch. So then after lunch, what you probably have is some meetings with maybe some stakeholders where, salespeople, right? Like we used to meet with the sales group, with the legal team, for some deals that maybe they were thinking of signing. And we would go into that meeting and make sure that they didn't have any terms that were going to be unusual in those deals, or at least that we had a heads up on those deals that they were thinking of signing. And then by 2:30, you have a couple meetings probably with stakeholders between after your lunch until like 2:30. And then you'll probably head into something in Excel. So whether it's reconciling like cash, for example, in revenue, or reconciling some other account, you'll probably have some Excel work that you'll be doing until the end of the day. So that's probably your typical day. It's full of meetings. It's full of meeting with different people. Maybe you're working on a automation project where you're implementing a system. So you're working with engineers. I've done that a ton. I've also worked with the product teams to think of, they're thinking about launching a product, and I'm talking to them about what they need to consider for downstream impact on the accounting end. So it varies day by day. And then obviously your month end close and your quarter end close, which is the first week or two of the month, depending on if it's a quarter close or month end close, you're going to be a little bit busy. So now I'm going to talk about public accounting. So when you're in public accounting, typical day, what it looks like, probably some meetings from 9 to 9:30, maybe 10, with your individual team. And then you might have some meetings with the client from 10 to 12, just ask the meetings on follow-ups, or maybe you're walking through a control or doing some sort of testing that you need just their help with. And then from 12 to 1, you probably take your lunch. And then from 1 to 5, what you're doing is basically in Excel, working with the team to make sure that you're doing your testing and conducting your testing correctly. So you're going to be doing a ton of Excel work. These workbooks are typically set up for you already, so you're probably just rolling them forward. Unless it's a new engagement, then you're creating them from scratch. So that's typically what you will find on a day-to-day basis is a ton of meetings with the client, a ton of Excel work, and then obviously your breaks in between that. Now I'm going to talk about why I got into accounting. So initially, why I wanted to get into accounting was because I wanted security for a job. I wanted to graduate and have a job. I also wanted to have the potential to make a lot of money. And then eventually what I found was that I was kind of good at accounting because I was a logical thinker. I always, solved problems logically. I always thought through things, and I always felt like I was decent at math. So it kind of went hand in hand. Not that I was like a genius in calculus or pre-calc or anything like that. It's just that I kind of gravitated towards that instead of like English or history or anything like, of those subjects. Once I got into accounting, what I found was some interesting things. So now I got into revenue accounting, and I found that there's things that I work on, like automation projects, implementing a system, working cross-functionally with engineers. And, I work with a ton of people. People think that you're just at your computer all day. And yes, a portion of my day I'm at my computer, not talking to anybody, but there is a large part of my day-to-day where I am working with a team. And I do enjoy that from an account, like just from a job perspective, it makes me feel like I'm not on my own, and I feel like I'm working towards something. So it does feel like a team and camaraderie thing that I've come to know and like within the accounting function. And then yes, along the way, now I'm making multiple six figures, I have a steady flow of jobs. So that's security and money I ended up getting. And that's something that I can't replace. And I love that I got into accounting. So should you become an accountant? And I will say that you need to just really look at the things that you enjoy. So of course, there's things like security, flexibility in working remote or working in an office, and there's obviously going to be compensation, but are you going to enjoy the job? Are you going to enjoy solving those problems logically? Are you going to be enjoying being in Excel for a big portion of your time? Are you going to enjoy working cross-functionally with people when because you're going to have to, right? You're not going to be siloed in a cubicle. So you should ask yourself, are those things appealing to you? And if they are, then accounting is definitely a job that you should consider. And of course, I will always say, yes, you should become an accountant because it's given so much to me. My mom made $20,000 a year growing up. Now I make multiple six figures and I'm able to support my family. So accounting has given me so much in my life, and I want that for you too. So if you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, leave a like. I love y'all. Peace.